Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Srunvatam sakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana Sudhiyantasto vai hi bhadrani vidnoti suritsatam nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Today we are going to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7. We'll discuss text 49. You all can pull up on your phone. Thank you. Sūta uvāca.
Sūta Gosvāmī.
dharmyaṁ nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
Nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
Nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
Rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
Pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
Sūta uvāca.
Sūta Gosvāmī.
dharmyaṁ nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
dharmyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
Nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
Rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
Pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
Anybody would like to read the verse?
Sūta Gosvāmī.
Sūta uvāca.
Dharmam nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
dharmyaṁ nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
Nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
Rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
Pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
Sūta uvāca.
Sūta uvāca.
Dharmam nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
dharmam nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
nirvyalīkaṁ samam mahat.
nirvyalīkaṁ samam mahat.
Rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
Sūta Gosvāmī.
Sūta Gosvāmī.
Dharmyaṁ nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
dharmam nyāyyaṁ sakaruṇaṁ.
Nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat.
nirvyalīkaṁ samam mahat.
Rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ.
pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ. Sūta uvāca.
Sūta Gosvāmī.
Sūta Gosvāmī said,
Sūta Gosvāmī said,
Dharmyaṁ,
Dharmyaṁ,
in accordance with the principles of religion,
in accordance with the principles of religion,
nyāyyaṁ,
nyāyyaṁ,
justice,
justice,
sakaruṇaṁ,
sakaruṇaṁ,
full of mercy,
full of mercy,
nirvyalīkaṁ,
nirvyalīkaṁ,
without duplicity in dharma,
without duplicity in dharma,
samaṁ,
samaṁ,
equity,
equity,
mahat,
Mahat.
glorious,
glorious,
rājā,
rājā,
the king,
the king,
dharma-suta,
dharma-suto,
son,
Son.
rājñyāḥ,
rājā,
by the queen,
by the queen,
pratyanandad,
pratyanandad,
supported,
supported,
vaca,
rājā,
statements,
statements,
dvijāḥ,
dvijāḥ,
O brāhmaṇas.
all brāhmanas.
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sūta Gosvāmī said, O brāhmanas, King Yudhiṣṭhira fully supported the statements of the queen, which were in accordance with the principles of religion and were justified, glorious, full of mercy and equity, and without duplicity. Purport. Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira, who was the son of Dharmaraj or Yamaraj, fully supported the words of Queen Draupadi in asking Arjuna to release Aswathama. One should not tolerate the humiliation of a member of a great family. Arjuna and his family were indebted to the family of Dronacharya because of Arjuna's learning the military science from him. If ingratitude were shown to such a benevolent family, it would not be at all justified from the moral standpoint. The wife of Dronacharya, who was the half body of the great soul, must be treated with compassion, and she should not be put into grief because of her son's death. That is compassion. Such statements by Draupadi are without duplicity because actions should be taken with full knowledge. The feeling of equality was there because Draupadi spoke out of her personal experience. A barren woman cannot understand the grief of a mother. Draupadi was herself a mother, and therefore her calculation of the depth of Kripi's grief was quite to the point. And it was glorious because she wanted to show proper respect to a great family. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna-pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashacya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you so very much for coming to this Sravanam Saturday morning program, and thank you for all the devotees for making me come here this morning and also learning from you all Vaishnavas. So I'm really excited to learn from you all today. So today we are discussing about the chapter Son of Drona Punished from Canto 1. But we will be mostly covering the last 10 verses starting 49 to 58. But since the chapter has come to an end with those verses, we'll be just summarizing it in details as well, so that we recap everything from this chapter and also the realizations that we all take home and practical application of these verses in our day-to-day life. So that's the intent of this discussion. So this is the verse that Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is talking about, right? Text 49. So dharmyaṁ, nyāyyaṁ, sakaruṇaṁ, nirvyalīkaṁ samaṁ mahat, rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ, pratyanandad vaco dvijāḥ. Sūta Gosvāmī said, O brāhmaṇas, King Yudhiṣṭhira fully supported the statements of the queen, which were in accordance with the principles of religion and were justified, glorious, full of mercy and equity, and without duplicity. So what is the situation here? So the previous classes, we already discussed the previous verses. So Ashwatthama killed the sons of Pandavas, the 5 sons of Pandavas. So his plan was to kill the Pandavas himself, but he killed the sons of Pandavas thinking they are Pandavas. And then there is a discussion, the thoughts exchange between Krishna, Arjuna, Draupadi, Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj, and the remaining Pandavas. So that's the situation. And Ashwatthama, Arjuna promised Draupadi that he is going to bring Ashwatthama and then take out his head so that Draupadi can bathe from his blood. So that was the promise Arjuna gives. And then let's see what Krishna's in discussion is, what Krishna's thought is, even before the situation ends. And we'll also see what Draupadi's response is in terms of Ashwatthama's forgiving. And then finally what Arjuna does and how Bhima reacts to this. So this is the essence of this chapter. So we're going to talk about the Lord Krishna's reasons. And Lord Krishna says to kill Ashwatthama based on religious principles. Okay. And if you want to refer to the verses, it's from text 35 to 41. Okay. So Lord Krishna instructs Arjuna to not to show any mercy by releasing the relative of a Brahma Bandhu. So Brahma Bandhu is the relative of a Brahmana, the family person of a Brahmana. So he is referring Ashwatthama as a Brahma Bandhu because he has killed the innocent boys in their sleep. Okay. So how do we rationalize this? So the Shastras enjoys that even if good qualifications are seen in a person born in a family other than that of a Brahmana, the qualified man has to be accepted as a Brahmana. So it's not necessary that you are born in a Brahmana family and you are by design Brahmanas. So we have all those 4 Varnas, right? So if he is born in a Brahmana family and he has to be qualified to be accepted as a Brahmana family, and similarly a person who is born in the family of Brahmana is void of Brahmanical qualification, then he must be treated as non-Brahmana. Okay. So that is the principle applied to Krishna's statement when he instructs Arjuna that not to show any mercy by releasing the relative of Brahmana or Brahma Bandhu. Is that clear? Okay. Now, the second statement Krishna makes, a person who knows the principles of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, intoxicated, insane, asleep, afraid, or devoid of his chariot. Nor does he kill a boy, a woman, a foolish creature, or a surrendered soul. Okay. So in those days, we were all carried out according to the religious principles. Even the most wicked Duryodhana and Karna followed these norms of the war, right? So Ashwatthama wanted to be very loyal to his to Duryodhana, the same as Karna did. So that's the rationale Krishna gives in this statement. So another rationale here, political morality. So political morality is to punish a person by a death sentence in order to save a cruel person from going to hell. Okay. So Krishna talks about that because he is liberated right then rather than he going to hell and going through many forms of life. So that a murderer is condemned to a death sentence by the state is good for the culprit because in his next life he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. Srila Prabhupada makes this statement as well. So such a death sentence for the murderer is the lowest possible punishment offered to him. Okay. Instead of not punishing him and then he has to take many forms of life. So the death sentence is the best form of punishment. And that's what Krishna is saying in this verse. And then furthermore, he also emphasizes to Arjuna that Arjuna has promised to Draupadi that he would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. So he emphasizes that statement. And then he also says, Krishna also says, the man is an assassin and a murderer of your own family members. So not only that, but he also dissatisfied his master and he is but the burnt remnants of his family, and Krishna instructs Arjuna to kill him immediately. So that's another statement. So these are the instructions that Krishna gives to Arjuna. So in summary, so Krishna is telling Arjuna, O warrior, this sinner, aggressive killers of relatives, disgrace to his family, who has displeased Duryodhana, should be killed. That's the instruction Krishna gives to Arjuna. Now let's see what Arjuna says. And you can refer text 40 and 41. Those are the two verses that Arjuna reacts to. So here Sūta Gosvāmī also explains is rational. So although Krishna, who was examining Arjuna in religion, encouraged Arjuna to kill the son of Dronacharya, but Arjuna, being a great soul, he did not like the idea of killing Ashwatthama because he had some soft-hearted corner on Ashwatthama. So now Arjuna is non-different than the situation here Arjuna is going through. It's non-different than the situation he went through when the Kurukshetra war was about to start, because he was in the confused state of mind, right? So, but Krishna wants Arjuna to kill Ashwatthama, whereas Draupadi, on the other hand, we look at Draupadi's reasoning why Ashwatthama should not be killed. So Draupadi says not to kill Ashwatthama, and of course Bhima also disagrees with Draupadi, and Bhima wants to kill Ashwatthama right then. So when Ashwatthama was brought to the camp, and he was covered like as an animal was dragged into the camp. So that's the situation here. So let's look at little deep into what Arjuna thinks about Krishna's instructions and what is his statement that he gives. So when Krishna is asking Arjuna to kill Ashwatthama at once, stating why he should do so because of the reasons that we discussed. But inside Arjuna there was some hesitation due to his soft-heartedness. So here we may have some duty to do, but sometimes we always have some soft corners, right? So we all may be in the same situations, more or less pretty much all the time. So here, the balance of what to do in a particular situation is so delicate. So we can just close the blind and easily choose to do one thing or another without properly discerning how to draw the fine balance. In this kind of situations, we could always lean towards one or the other and not balance it with full knowledge. Whereas Draupadi's arguments, every argument that she made, the six rationals, everything is coming out with full knowledge. So it's very challenging sometimes to understand, to strike the balance. So the greater level of our responsibility is, more important it is that we execute things in a responsible and proper way. So that's the statement. And I just wanted to read what Srila Prabhupada says here, right? So Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It is not that Arjuna was incomplete in the sense of his duty. We have to understand that. Nor was Lord Krishna unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty. Okay. But Lord Krishna put to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty. So this is a very, very important statement, because we all go through these situations in our life, and we have to take these instructions from Srila Prabhupada very seriously. On one hand, one could argue, Krishna himself said to Arjuna, just kill Ashwatthama. But look at what Srila Prabhupada is giving us, the essence of what Krishna is trying to instruct to Arjuna. He is not just simply saying kill him, which does not mean he is looking at Arjuna as incompetence. It's not the case. Okay, I would like to read that sentence again. So Lord Krishna put to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duties. Just like the gopis were put to such test as well. So Prahlad Maharaj was also put to such a test, and all pure devotees come out successful in the respective test by the Lord. We all know these pastimes. Pastimes with the gopis, pastimes with Prahlad Maharaj. Okay. And even here, as we go through, we'll find out how Arjuna took the decision to punish Ashwatthama. So after reaching the camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and charioteer Sri Krishna, entrusted the murder unto his dear wife, who was lamenting to her murdered sons. Okay, so that's where we are in that situation. Now let's talk about what Draupadi says. So, Draupadi's arguments are from text 43 to 48. So, Draupadi says, the first argument is, he's a Brahmana, so we should not kill. Okay. Then she says, we are having obligation to Dronacharya, because Dronacharya is the one who taught us the, he gave us the military training to Krishna, to Arjuna and all the rest of the Pandavas. And then she also says, killing son means killing father. Okay? Because the son represents father. That's her rationale. And then she says, never cause grief to respectable and worshipable family, because the family of Dronacharya and Kripi are a very respectable and worshipable, and because they are the teachers to the Pandavas. So that's why Draupadi feels like we should not cause any grief to this respectable and worshipable family. And then Draupadi also talks about the pain of childlessness. Okay? Because Draupadi is already experiencing the pain when 5 of her sons are killed in the middle of the night. So she doesn't want Kripi, the wife of Dronacharya, the mother of Ashwatthama, should not lament like Draupadi. That's another argument. And the last argument, a statement she makes is, offer high esteem to Brahmana class. So we always have to offer high esteem to Brahmana class. Now, taking these 6 arguments, and then so the verse that we read through right now, which Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj says, and we will relate those things, how these arguments fit and why Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj accepts those statements that Draupadi says. Now the first one, she says, not cause grief to a glorious family member, respectable or worshipable. Okay. So this is dharmyaṁ. Okay. And this is dharma, because he is a Brahmana, and he is the son of a spiritual master, and that's the reason it equates to dharmyaṁ in text 49, the verse that we read. And then Draupadi says obligation to Dronacharya, right? And that is equivalent to nyāyyaṁ. Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj says that, I agree with that argument of Draupadi, the obligation to Dronacharya and his family, and that is nyāyyaṁ, which is justified. And Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj also says he agrees with Draupadi's statement on the son represents the father. You don't want to give grief to the Guru, Dronacharya. So that is sakaruṇaṁ. That is, it represents sakaruṇaṁ. And then Draupadi says the last statement, offer high esteem to Brahmana class, and that is called mahat. Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj says it is mahat. So glorious arguments. Okay. And then Draupadi also says the pain of childlessness, because she has lost the 5 sons and she doesn't want Kripi to undergo those pain, and that is called samaṁ. Okay. So those are the rationales that Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj gives to Draupadi's statements, and he completely agrees that Draupadi is making these statements with full knowledge, and it's not like with emotions. Okay. Are we on the same page? Right? So just like to summarize also as we are moving, so that we get to a point. So we talked about the situation, why this chapter was these verses are spoken. Then we talked about what Krishna said to Arjuna. Then we talked about what is the situation of Arjuna and what is his thought and how is he trying to think in this kind of situation. Then we talked about what Draupadi's arguments are, not to forgive Ashwatthama. Then we just talked about Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj supporting those arguments from Draupadi, and he praises Draupadi that these arguments are very glorious, and he gives the rationale for each of those arguments that Draupadi has made in this verse. So we'll read that verse once again. So dharmyaṁ, nyāyyaṁ, sakaruṇaṁ, nirvyalīkaṁ, samaṁ, mahat, rājā dharma-suto rājñyāḥ, pratyanandad, vaco, dvijāḥ. Okay. So this is what Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is justifying. So after this, what happens? We'll see that. So now we are clear about Draupadi, and we heard about Krishna's instructions. We know what is the state of mind that Arjuna is in. And now Bhima comes in here, right? So Bhima completely disagrees with Draupadi, and he says Ashwatthama has to be killed right away. Right? So before we talk about the result, I also want to add in the practical application here when Draupadi makes those statements. Okay. So first of all, Draupadi is exhibiting the mild nature of a woman. Okay, in text 42, you see Draupadi is exhibiting the mild nature of woman. So let's read what Srila Prabhupada says on that. The specific words used in this sloka are Vama Swabhava, mild and gentle by nature. Okay. A good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so. But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminative power just to be gentle, just to be nice. Okay, it's we all work in office and jobs, so we always want to be nice, right? We don't want to get into any kind of situations and create arguments, conflicts, and contradictions, etc. and so on. So, but anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. It's a very powerful statement. One must have good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. We should not follow the mild nature of a woman and thereby accept that which is not genuine. So Ashwatthama may be respected by a good-natured woman, but that does not mean he is as good as a genuine brāhmana. So that's Prabhupada is bringing in a different angle of thought for the regarding mild nature of Draupadi when she starts giving her statements or arguments. See? Yeah, you're all with me now. Now let's see how this applies to our practical life. So it is very important to have a balance between the discriminatory power and also the gentle nature. Right? Do we all agree? And this is very important for devotees. Being gentle is good, but that should not consume our power to discriminate between what is correct and what is incorrect. That's the practical application we can take from this verse. Okay. So as devotees, we have to be gentle. We cannot showcase ourselves as warriors fighting for sense gratification, right? Which is against the devotee path. But at the same time, we should also use our intelligence and our power to discriminate between what is correct and what is not correct. So we get into these kind of arguments many times, especially when you're in leadership positions. We talk about, right? Because there is always everybody says whatever makes is right, but at the same time, what is 100% correct, and what we have to use our intelligence to make a decision what is correct in the eyes of Krishna and the eyes of Guru and Prabhupada. So that's the realization. And now the second one, second statement. When Draupadi could not tolerate Ashwatthama, seeing when Ashwatthama was brought into the camp, he was brought into the camp with a bond of ropes, just like an animal being dragged into the camp, right? And Draupadi being a devoted lady, the first statement she says is, release him, for he is a brahmana, our spiritual master, right? Because Dronacharya is the guru and son of spiritual master is Ashwatthama. So the first thing he says is release him. Now here, how do we apply this, and what how do we let's have some discussion on this. So in spite of all the injustices, Draupadi decided that Ashwatthama to be released at once, and it was all the same a good sentiment for her, right? So that means as a devotee of the Lord can tolerate all sorts of tribulation personally, but still such devotees are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. So these are the characteristics of one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Okay, so that's right. We are all same page. So now, how do we apply this in our day-to-day life? So Vaishnavas, as Vaishnavas, the first quality we need to have is compassion. So when someone causes pain, we should think that this person was just an instrument in giving back the reactions of my karma. Right? So in fact, we should be grateful to that person because he is helping us wash away our impurities. So this should be a mode of a devotee. That's how we understand here when Draupadi says release him at first. So here, forgiveness and tolerance are Brahmanical qualities, and it is very important for a Vaishnava to cultivate this. Right? So we have to be understanding those statements. Okay, so now we discussed about Draupadi's statements, and Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj accepting those statements and praising Draupadi as very glorious, and we also applied some of the practical applications of Draupadi's arguments in terms of asking Ashwatthama to be released, and we talked about tolerance, compassion, gratitude, how we have to be forgiveness and have the tolerance and forgiveness as a Brahmanical qualities. Okay. Now let's go to the last part of the conversation here. So everyone agreed to Draupadi, including Krishna, in that situation. But Bhima is not in agreement. So Bhima says we have to kill Ashwatthama. So now Arjuna is in a confusion again. So what happens when Arjuna is confusion? He takes the shelter of Krishna. And what should we do when we are in confusion in the state of mind? We have to take shelter of Krishna. So that's the learning. Arjuna simply did not take his decision. Oh, I am wise, I know all this, I've been trained. Now I fought the war, I won the battle. And he did not take the decision based on his own intelligence. So he took the shelter of Krishna. So this is the symptom of a pure devotee. So of course, we can say I cannot talk to Krishna, right? But you have to go to Krishna through Guru's instructions. And we have living Gurus, or we also have disciples who are very much in the transcendental mode. So we take their shelter that time. So that's what we need to understand from this. So now when Arjuna is in confusion and he takes shelter of Krishna. Now Krishna perfectly harmonizes this situation. So we are all clear with what the situation is right now. So he perfectly harmonizes the situation. He instructs Arjuna, you have to respect Draupadi, and you also have to respect Bhima. Right? And so basically what Krishna says is to Arjuna to kill and not to kill. How can that happen? Right now Arjuna, now this is where we have to use our discriminatory power. So Arjuna took shelter of Krishna, and Krishna has said he want to harmonize the situation, and he said you have to respect both Draupadi and Bhima's arguments, Bhima's decisions. So meaning kill and not kill. And this is where Arjuna has to use his discriminatory power. And that's what we read through in our realizations. So now, this indicates to Arjuna that he has to take action, the final action. We are getting close. And now what Arjuna does, he cuts the hair of Ashwatthama, he takes out the jewels of Ashwatthama, and he leaves him without wealth and residence. And according to Shastra, and that is a proper punishment for a Brahmana Bandhu, who is a relative of Brahmana. And that's what he does. Okay. So, and that ends the chapter, Drona, son of Drona, being punished. So at the end, we should carry out our duties with maturity. And maturity means considering so many factors before making a decision, not only considering one factor. And that is the important lesson we can take from this. Apart from all the instructions that Krishna has given, the instructions that we read when Prabhupada has given, and the actions that Draupadi and Arjuna has performed towards the end. So the essence is we should carry out our duties with maturity. And with maturity means considering so many factors and not only considering one factor which is more appealing to that person to make a decision. So that's the learning from this chapter. And Srila Prabhupada also says here, contradictory orders of different persons are impossible to carry out, right? Like just example. So let's say I'm serving prasad. Then I get like Ramesh Prabhu comes, no Prabhu, you should do this way. Then Naveen Prabhu or Ramdev Prabhu may come and say, no Prabhu, do this way. So what do? Right? You're in a contradictory state of mind. Right? So contradictory orders of different persons are impossible to carry out. Can I please both at the same time? No. So therefore, a compromise was selected by Arjuna by his sharp intelligence, the power of discriminatory power. That's where you have to use the intelligence. And he separated the jewel from the head of Ashwatthama. This was as good as cutting off his head. And yet, his life was saved for all practical purposes. So, he killed in terms of Bhima, because by taking out the jewel and cutting off the hair. And his life was also saved because Draupadi asked Ashwatthama should not be killed. So he killed and not killed. So this is the understanding we have to take from these verses. Okay. So another understanding is advancement in spiritual life is based on choices. Do you all agree? So we take choices at every moment. So why should we all be here? Like, Saturday morning, we are tired on Friday night, happily sleep for a few hours, wake up. So we can skip breakfast and we can have brunch. So breakfast and lunch is brunch, right? We could think that way too. So we have a choice to make at every moment. So in spiritual advancement, there's only two choices. Either, the choices are either to act from the mind and emotions, or the choices is to act out of spiritual intelligence. Either you can do that way or this way. So what we need to do? Do we pick the first one with mind and emotions, or do we pick the acting out of spiritual intelligence? Spiritual intelligence. Okay. So that's why a lot of times also when we are in some positions, we bring our emotions, we express our emotions to make some decisions, which is not right. We think we are in the spiritual platform. Our external platform is portrayed as we are working with mind and emotions. Right? It's very, very important step. So that is why we have to act out of the spiritual intelligence. So of course these are all resonated to me with everything that's currently going on. So that's why I thought I can share that one. Okay. So that's one thing. And then, so lastly, one of the disciple also makes this statement here. Ashwatthama represent whimsical character or whimsical behavior. Now what does this mean? Whimsical. Whimsical, you all know the meaning of whimsical, right? So I'll just read out based on the definition that's given out in the dictionary. Whimsical means full of or characterized by whims, which are odd ideas that usually occur to you very suddenly. If you decide at the last minute to fly to Europe, you could say you went there on a whim. Whimsical can also mean tending towards odd or unpredictable behavior. So that is whimsical behavior, unpredictable behavior. So as you can see in this situation, Ashwatthama, the war ended, Duryodhana was having his challenges, his thigh was burst out and he was having his own challenge. And kingdom and everything was done. But then Ashwatthama, he thought like he really wants to please his master, Duryodhana. So he just went and made action. But have he used his intelligence? Are they real Pandavas? Or are they sons of Pandavas? There was no thought. He just got a thought, he went and killed all the 5 sons of Pandavas in the middle of the night in the camp. So that's tending towards odd or unpredictable behavior. Okay. So what is the lesson learned with this, right? So the whimsical behavior can also be represented independent-minded behavior. Independent-minded behavior. I don't need anybody to come and say like, do this way, do that way, right? I mean, it's like monarch, right? So this kind of behavior, it will neither please Guru, nor please Krishna, nor please Vaishnavas, right? So what we should do, we should overcome from this independent-minded behavior. And we should act according to scriptures, we should act according to instructions of Guru and Krishna, and we should also use our discriminatory power, intelligence, and act accordingly. So those are the essence from this chapter that we can take. So they all with me now. Just trying to see if I missed any of those points. Just to so I think covered all that. So with that, thanks for giving me this opportunity, Hari Prabhu. Really blessed with this, and I'm also learning, and I want to hear from you all if I have said any statements that are not correct, and we want to discuss and make sure that we are all on the good platform of bhakti. Yes,
I
Prabhu.
had a question, Prabhu.
Mhm.
So, to start off first, what an awesome class. Thank you so much for sharing such great ideas and points. Acting from maturity, I remember when I played a sport in college, I would see my coach would say, being mature is doing things that you don't necessarily want to do all the time. So, having to compromise and make those compromises in your mental space. And I thought of this question that I have for you is, I think it's the 7th offense is, to not cause sinful acts, relying on the power of the holy name. And then another one is to not blaspheme devotees who have given their life for Sri Krishna. So I thought of this scenario: what happens when someone is abusing, someone who's given their life to their devotional life to Sri Krishna, but is abusing the chanting of the holy name and committing very sinful actions? What is the best way to have maturity in that scenario and approach it the right way? Because in your mind, of course, you're really frustrated and you're saying, why is this happening? But also in some sort of spiritual intelligence, I feel like there's also some sort of thing like, this isn't necessarily right either. Obviously, you don't hate them, but it's like, how do we act on that? You know, how do we respond to that type of situation?
Janak Prabhu, would like to address this?
So I was wondering what we do in a scenario if someone is devoting their life to Sri Krishna, right? But then they're committing sinful actions on the reliance of the holy name. So how do we act maturely and respond to that situation?
The person himself, how does he respond to overcome it?
Or let's say like we're seeing something happen, or we observe something happen. How do we respond to that?
Yeah, well, we cannot really do much in that sense because it is the guru that corrects the disciples on things. We don't take it upon ourselves to become the guru in correcting people. So allow the guru or those who are acting on behalf of the guru to actually correct such issues. If we want to correct the issues ourselves, we become implicated also in sinful activities. So in most cases, that's why the guru is there to correct the disciples. And sometimes the guru also delegates some personalities on his behalf. That's why I have authorities, and these authorities are there to correct the misgivings of devotees. But sometimes what we see is that the devotee being corrected may begin to think, this person corrected me. He's not supposed to correct me. He's not purified enough to correct me. But he has forgotten that he was actually delegated by the spiritual master to correct. Even though he may be doing his own bad things, he's on his own platform doing his own, but because it's in a position, he's been asked by the guru to help him in this service, then he should take his instructions, take his authority. Correct yourself based on the instructions. That will help the person. And that is how to respond. That is why in most cases, if you say what you doing something which was that be wrong, then you just let the authorities know about it. And they'll be in a position to actually correct. You know, to create more complications in the association, interaction with more devotees.
Thank you, Chandra. So, just anybody who wants to add anything? Ramesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Very nice class, Prabhu. Thank you. Lot of so many points. So just a couple of comments. So it looks like this is an Ashwatthama weekend, I think, because tomorrow we have a very important class. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. That's the subject of tomorrow's class. So I have this Malti Mataji, she's going to give that class. So it's going to be interesting. So it's continuation of the same theme. She will be giving class. So one small thing, Prabhu, I just wanted to add was you came up with the last part of this thing, right? You talked about whimsical character or behavior, right? So I think what the point you are trying to make, and this will be a comment and then you can add stuff to that. So the point you are trying to make is when we do action in our life, we have to make sure that we are not guided by our own mind. Something beyond mind is there. Most of the time when we are acting, it's whatever the mind is prompting, we are doing. Right? There is something beyond the mind which we are forgetting. I think that's what you are trying to make that point. When you talk about spiritual intelligence and all those things, that is, you are talking at a little bit higher level. Yeah. So one point I got from there is and this is where Ashwatthama was acting more from the point of mind. But
Mind
Arjuna,
and emotions.
Mind and emotions. Right? Arjuna is from the spiritual intelligence level he's being from there. So that's a big lesson we learned from So it should not be a spontaneous, whatever comes to my mind, I just do it and then regret for the whole life. Why did I do this? So one good point, Chaitanya Prabhu, one of the lecturers, he makes a very good point. How do I know? First of all, how do I discriminate? See, that's a very important point. How do I know if something is coming from my mind or is it coming from my intelligence, spiritual intelligence? See, most of the time that distinction is lost. Whether this is something coming from my mind or is this coming from my intelligence? So that's where becomes a very good, gives a very good example. In case of the body, we know if we are doing something from the body, it's very easily you can understand that we are not this body. Because we are seeing thousands of people dying every day. Nothing happens to that body. The body is right there, right? Nothing happens. So we can make out that we are not this body. That's the easy thing to understand. But how do you make out that we are not this mind? The second level is very difficult. And Prabhu gives a very good practical example for this. Early morning at 5 o'clock, get up and try to chant. There is something inside you which says, no, don't do this. This is not going to help us. Something keeps on talking inside you, right?
Crazy.
That's the mind. It's very easy. Prabhu says very easy to identify the mind. Try chanting. Every day chant the holy name and you will see. And again he says that is the solution. The solution also lies there. He says that the same holy name will give you all these three powers. And he talks, Chandra Prabhu talks in his lecture, it is not only empowering. See, this is something, humanly it is not possible to overcome that thing. You need divine power. And that's, where is that? In the holy name. Second thing, you need to be purified. See, now what has happened is, anything we think by default, it goes to that. It's going to our material, whatever the mind is thinking, that is what we are thinking. We are not, there is no intelligence or anywhere and all those things. That also God that needs purification. As they say, like even in this thing, once the sun comes up, right, everything you are able to see clearly. Right, in the night everything is dark, we don't see anything. But once the sun comes up, everything is clear. Not only that, any other impurities are also clarified by the sun. Because of its heat, it's able to even purify. That is the value of the holy name. Purification. And the third, the most important one is fulfillment. Prabhu talks about fulfillment. See, all other activities you do, you are never fulfilled. You want more, you want more, you want more. And you keep on doing it, again it comes back to the same thing. It never ends, right? But the holy name is the only one which can fulfill, truly fulfill. You will have that fulfillment. So that's what Prabhu says. It's very important to understand where the mind is talking. And most of the time when the mind is talking, just ignore it. Don't even, once you try following that mind, that's where it leads you into all these issues and all those things. And that's where the spiritual end is. So I just wanted to add, Prabhu, if you have any comments.
No, it's
Hare Krishna.
good points, Prabhu. Thanks for all that.
It's okay.
I want to add a comment
Sure.
to what David Prabhu's question was.
It's quiet.
So, I would just add on to Ramesh Prabhu's comments and Chanakya Prabhu's comment that when Yadhu Prabhu said someone is blaspheming holy name, and then Prabhu said we can reach out to authorities or guru, and as Ramesh Prabhu mentioned, we can also chant. We can chant and then we can pray to Krishna that that person would get intelligence, and he may not do that, and he may get some mercy of Krishna. By that he can get some purification, and he may not do that. And that we can
Nice one.
Well, add one more thing to that point. Just yesterday we yesterday we were having this chat on our one of the WhatsApp groups that apologizing. Mahatma Prabhu, he just shared the video that why it is so important to apologize, and it's not always the case that I am right. Even though sometimes I am right, other person is obviously wrong. There is obvious reasons that that person has done something wrong, but still I am right. Should I apologize? I think you said we can pray to Krishna, we can pray to Guru, we can reach out to authorities, but at the end of the day, do we have that humility of, okay, I am also not perfect. Many the thing is that both the parties have false ego. Both the parties have some actions, not like pure devotees, but it is also very important to take a step back, and I think Hare we were discussing how to appreciate, how to see good in others, pretty much always. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati would do that. Two devotees were fighting.
Oh yeah. So what happened was that when two of the Matvasis, when they were something good to say about him, and then the other guys, okay, now it's your turn, you say good thing about him, and then he would make them go for it's described in Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava by Sūta Gosvāmī. It's mentioned that he would make them go for hours, and he would be sitting there, and he would be find something good, find something else, what about, and then he would even pry them on. He would say, oh, what about this, talk about this, and then when we have that, it's kind of like we have our minds are kind of trained to have sewer mentality and always looking at bad in others, always trying to find the dirt. And then that's where your mind, if you're trying to find fault in others, that's where your mind will be, right? But if you always try to find the good in others, but not losing your discriminatory power, because that is also, I had the opportunity to serve Bhagavatam class last week, and we're talking about the conditioning of vama svabhava, of that gentleness, and that is still a conditioning because you lose your discriminatory power. But Draupadi's playing that part of a woman, of showing that vama svabhava, but then she immediately uses that discriminatory power in the next verse, 43, and then she says that, okay, but he is the son of Dronacharya and Kripi. And so she is using that discriminatory power, but she's showcasing that vama svabhava, but we should never lose our discriminatory power unless we're on that Uttamadhikari platform. That I think I was reading yesterday in Krishna, Sukdama's wife is sending him to Krishna, and then one of the prayers I think Sudama is making to Krishna is that every devotee, every living entity should pay obeisances. Every devotee should pay obeisances to every living entity he sees. And then it's because he sees that Krishna is in every being. And then Prabhupada adds there, he said that is a very high platform. That is Uttamadhikari platform. Exactly. But at least, even in Nectar instruction, we should be able to tell where a person is, and then how we can benefit them, and how they can benefit us, or how we can deal with them. Because that's very important. I like that point that we should not lose our discriminatory power, because we're not like we're still. It's kind of like a hospital, right? Yeah. It's like we're not like a doctor and go to every hospital per wing and then heal everybody. Because when we go try to heal somebody, we might go get sick ourselves, Exactly. So we're not at that platform yet, so we shouldn't act we're on that platform. So we should see who is sick and who is not sick, and then we should associate with people who are not sick and who we can help. We can help them, by the regular process. And we have to understand that this hospital, Prabhupada did call ISKCON hospital. He said there are a lot of sick people in the hospital. There's a lot so we can't expect everybody to be Uttamadhikari, kind of like Nityananda Prabhu or like Madhavendra Puri, eat once a day and this and that. People have their conditionings and people are trying to slowly work on them. So
and people come to the hospital for prasad.
Prasad, yeah.
It cannot be.
Yeah, they come for so many things. But I also had a question.
in regards to these verses. So the final conclusion was that kill him but don't kill him. That we kill, so you kill him by cutting off the jewel of his head, which to a brahmana that's like worse than shame. But you don't kill him because you save his life. So is this compromise due to the arguments of Bhishma? Because everybody else was of Bhima. Everybody else was agreeance. Even Krishna, who told Arjuna to kill him on the spot, and Arjuna didn't. Even Krishna is his. We can't say his mind has changed, but we can say that he's in agreement of Draupadi's arguments. So is this because this compromise? Is it because of only Bhima's argument, or is it for the necessary punishment for the crime? Because we can't just not do any punishment, right?
Yeah.
So that was my question.
Good, very, very wonderful question. So, Chandra, what do you think?
Of course, first is that Draupadi had been pacified. Despite the fact that she was lenient in her disposition, but still, she had been pacified for whatever had happened to her, the children and all that. That's one aspect. Bhima also had been pacified by doing something drastic. But the main thing is the position of dharma in this Muslim. There's no recommendation of killing the body of a brahmana, whether it's a brahmana or a brahmana. There's no prescription in the scripture that his body should be killed. And that is what Arjuna actually took to mind. So Krishna prompted him, both from his rhetorics and also from inside, prompted him to act properly because he knew the essence of dharma, that brahmana should not be killed. If you kill a brahmana, you commit great offense, even though it's a fallen brahmana. But that's what can be. So there's no recommendation of killing his body, but it can be killed by serious disgrace, by disgracing him, by dispossessing him of his valuables, and also by chasing him out of the camp. So like that, he took into consideration karma, not just to classify Bhima alone.
There is one comment or question on YouTube.
I like to add to this one.
Hare Krishna.
Oh. So thank you, Chanak Prabhu. And Hari Prabhu, wonderful question. I just wanted to share my realization with this, like using the discriminative power, and then the Bhima has to be satisfied and Draupadi also has to be satisfied. So I think what I'm taking, the instructions I'm taking from Krishna in this pastime is like, let's say we are heading towards Krishna consciousness, we are making our life spiritual advancement as a family. Even then, we are all devotees within a family. We will have difference of opinions and arguments. So the understanding is like, we cannot just displease one person and please another person, right? And at the same time, if those kind of arguments are done by a devotee and a sense gratification person, then the discriminatory power would be different. The decision at that time would be completely different. But when it happens between a family, and Pandavas are known for their integrity, and there were so many arguments. So just like, but in case of Kauravas, it was just Duryodhana saying do this, and everybody else just blindly follows. But did they have arguments? They could have some arguments, but not the arguments that will, those arguments are not like they only please them and they don't please others in the community. So in this case, Pandavas are known for their integrity. So in my relation is, as a family, when we work together into Krishna consciousness, it's much easier. But if you have one, not completely into it, and maybe he's atheist, we don't want that situation in a family. But if he is an atheist and then you have another family working towards Krishna consciousness, you will still have those struggles and challenges. Okay. But fortunately, I don't think, at least people in this room, we are not in that kind of situation at this time. So that's how I took the realization from that verse. Thank you so much. And Navin Prabhu has a question. You can-
Yes, so Navin Krishna Prabhu asks, first of all, he has a comment that there is a criteria for forgiving whom, when, where, and why. It is not like forgiving all or none. The end result of forgiving is transformation of our heart. Now the question is, the same Draupadi who could not forgive Dushashan for violating her chastity could easily forgive Ashwatthama for killing her sleeping sons. Why is that?
Navin Prabhu to answer that.
Yeah, ask him to try business.
So, Chandra Prabhu, would you like to take that? Nice question, Navin Krishna Prabhu. And it's a tough question.
It's one of those stump the Swami questions.
It's not very easy. Not very easy. You know, because it's also, because there's a statement that normally say that when one is lost, nothing is lost. When life is lost, something is lost. When the character is lost, it's a categorization of such offenses. Actually, when a sister of a woman is put into question, is being attacked, that is a serious offense, even than killing somebody. So Drupadi, the Dusasan trying to rope Drupadi in the public is the most heinous offense. Drupadi considered the most heinous even than killing her. So in that sense, she didn't think of forgiving Dusasan for any reason. But that's the highest they can do to a woman. She can endure the death of her children, but not, disgrace or her chastity in the public. So that's why that pained her to the heart, in that sense. And secondly also, Ashwatthama was considered to be a brāhmaṇa and born by their guru. So she's also in a higher position than Dusasan, who are just a rascal in a Kshatriya family who is doing all manners of things. So the position is quite different. That is why she seems to be more lenient in this aspect of Ashwatthama and that of Dusasan. But I thought of such differences in the relative positions that may lead to that consideration by the persons. There may be other things you can say in that respect.
Anyways, thank you all so very much, and nice discussion, and this is what we would like to have more often. Nice questions and wonderful realizations from a lot of devotees. With that, we'll just say our Vaishnava prayers and end this session. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Chandra Vaishnava in the key.
Chandra Prabhu ki